finally Friday.
It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
All right, welcome back to the Friday Show, presented by Cal Racing Cares. Happy New Year from all of us at the Paulick Report. I'm Scott Jagow, along with Ray Paulick. Coming up, we're going to talk about some controversial new race conditions in Southern California. But first, Ray, also happening in Southern California is possibly some major changes coming to Santa Anita Park. Tim Ritvo made mention of those earlier this week. But when we started talking about this, it became more of a bigger picture about the future of horse racing in the United States. Let's start with explaining what we mean by that.
Well, I think when you look at some of the major racetracks today, they're not traditional anymore. It used to be you go to the track, the big parking lot, huge grandstand. Now you look around, you see Gulfstream Park, which is in the middle of a village. Laurel Park is going to undergo some changes, I think, that will incorporate restaurants and entertainment options right at the front gate. We haven't really heard any specifics about Belmont Park, but most recently, the New York Islanders announced they're going to build a stadium there. The stadium will be surrounded by restaurants and entertainment options. I think Belmont will undergo major renovations that will change. It's going to be a lot like baseball stadiums when they changed from the typical suburban stadium surrounded by parking lots to Camden Yards and city parks.
Right, and it makes sense to think about that as a vision for the future, to have entertainment options, because if you spend any time at Gulfstream Park, it's a pretty cool environment to be a part of. And Santa Anita is thinking about something along those lines, at least down the road. More in the immediate future, though, and this is a logistical tweak that could also be part of racing's future here, widening the turf course at Santa Anita and creating more of an environment like at Gulfstream Park, where you have a wide turf course that you could move the rail in and out, have more races on the turf, because, as Ritvo has pointed out, turf starters end up racing more often, and the fields are big, and it's becoming more and more popular among owners and trainers to race on the turf in the U.S. And I think, turf racing is a big part of our future.
Yeah, Santa Anita and all of California racing is driven by handle. And turf, as you said, turf races are more competitive, bigger fields, and that drives more handle. We've seen it at other tracks. Gulfstream Park has gone through that evolution. The one downside to it is the turf courses, no matter how big they are, they take a beating when you race on them year round.
Yeah, even in Florida at Gulfstream Park and in Southern California, where you can race all year long,
right.
That, to me, it doesn't mean you have to race all year long, literally, like every single day. I mean, I think that's part of again, maybe the future of racing is a little bit more abridged. I mean, we still have this problem where there's no end to the season. People always ask me, is the season over? When is the season over? It's never over. To me, that's a problem. I think we need to rethink the structure of the sport as we're redesigning the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say let's have less racing, but it is racing that drives the revenue for the companies that own the track. So there's got to be maybe a happy medium there. But I think turf racing really is you can look at the numbers, and it is growing as a percentage of all racing. And one of the pluses of this is that it's safer. Horses come out of it better. They race more often. I mean, it really, we've seen all the downward trends in racing and number of starts and all that, but turf racing, more of it may help reverse that.
So another part of this issue in Southern California is, the horse population, and then the number of owners that exist, and people getting into the game, whether there are enough of them and whether they are encouraged as they get into the game, or are they discouraged by losing so much to
right.
the bigger stables and the bigger owners. So California, Frank Stronach talked about helping the little guy. Recently, California has come up with these new conditions. One of them is stables 20 or less can compete in a particular race. And then another one in the maiden special weight category is homebreds or horses that were purchased at auction for $100,000 or less. We've had a couple of these races already. What's your take?
Well, they had some, I think, some problems with the claiming race for stables that had 20 horses or less, because the runner-up objected, saying that the winning barn had more than 20 horses if you count all of the low-level claimers at Los Alamitos that are unable to compete. I think it's Santa Anita. So that one, I think just logistical problems that they'll work out. The maiden race is the more interesting one to me. So it's not exactly like Little League where everybody gets a ribbon or a trophy, but it's allowing more horses to graduate. It's allowing more maidens to get out of the maiden company because, they're not going up against a $500,000 yearling purchase. They're going up against similar horses that sold for under $100,000 or homebreds. Now, homebreds, that's a tricky category because you might be going up against a Juddmonte Farm homebred that is wonderfully bred, or any number of other barns that race in Southern California. Well, so that one's the first winner was a homebred trained by Bob Baffert for Hal Earnhardt.
Well, exactly, but that's not what this is. That was exactly not what was supposed to happen. Having a horse trained by Bob Baffert win the first race by 9 1/4 lengths. I think that flies in the face of what they were trying to do. Yeah. And again, there's so many ways to get around this. I get that they're trying to do something new, and that is laudable, because in racing, so much status quo loving that I can't stand it. But you do have to look at this as maybe a Band-Aid instead of a bigger overall structural change to the way racing operates here. Because I'm thinking about the race with 20 or under. Already, the director of racing has said, well, it's not a rigid guideline. We're going to look at the field and say, does anybody not belong here? So he was saying, while this guy had more than 20 horses, I'm not going to count those $3,200 claimers at Los Al that he has. Those don't count. So already, one race in, it's all fudgy. I mean, So I'm not sure how effective this is actually going to be.
Well, the bottom line here, especially with the maiden conditions, is to give owners a better experience. People get into the game to have fun, and I think part of having fun is winning. It's also the atmosphere, and the long-term improvements at Santa Anita, I think, will create a better atmosphere. The atmosphere, as you mentioned, at Gulfstream Park is really fun. A lot of people don't like the fact that it's not a traditional grandstand anymore, but it's a fun atmosphere. And if you can create that kind of an atmosphere in Southern California where winning is more fun, and then you have these conditions where if you invest $75,000 in a yearling, you have a better chance of winning, that's fun too.
Again, I just think that this might be a kind of a Band-Aid as opposed to restructuring the class environment in racing. And Hong Kong has a very definitive structure where horses that are maidens can compete against horses that have won 10 times if they're in the same class level. And they move up and down the class level based on their performance. If they're getting whooped at Class 5, they get put down in Class 6 or whatever. So maybe retooling this would help, because as Keith DeSormo pointed out, and I have a little bit of a problem with this as well, it seems like welfare. It seems like a handout, as he used the word handout. It seems like socialism, in fact, in racing. Are we going to change the whole economic model away from, best person wins, competition, and capitalistic ideas, and have, okay, well, you can't seem to win an open company, so we'll have you compete against small stables. I don't know.
Well,
it feels wrong.
I'll take it from your comments that you would not endorse Bernie Sanders as the next commissioner of racing.
No politics in here. All right. Well, we have a poll around this. Do you think that these new race conditions will benefit racing? Let us know at PaulickReport.com. Take the poll on our website. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Friday Show presented by Cal Racing Cares. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.